All right, so we are back home. We are in Texas. I just want to do a Pittsburgh Pro weekend recap with you to let you know my experience, the result of the competition, and what's on the horizon moving forward as we continue the Road to the Olympia 2026 series. So first and foremost, I thought the Pittsburgh Pro experience was awesome. The venue was amazing. The athletes were the highest caliber of this whole season so far across probably every show outside of the Arnold Classic. Arguably very similar competition depth as the Arnold Classic, maybe even better. And so it was a really great opportunity to see where I measure up against some of the best athletes in the world when it comes to the classic physique division in the IFBB Pro League. And so unfortunately, the weekend did not pan out the way I wanted it to as far as placings go. I did not end up placing in the Pittsburgh Pro. I was on the end of the second call out. So there was 3 total call outs for 28 total athletes. So each call out had about 9 people. And so if I had to guess, if they did place beyond 15th, I probably placed somewhere between 16th and 18th. So I finished middle of the pack for the Pittsburgh Pro. Not bad considering the look that I brought to the stage. One of the biggest things that I personally need to improve on is my conditioning. That was very apparent from the moment we did athlete weigh-ins. There was just a different caliber of conditioning than what I expected. And historically, comparing my conditioning to how I've shown up in the past, this is probably my second best visual conditioning that I've gotten in. The only show that I've done in the past that had better conditioning was the Chicago Pro. And I won the Chicago Pro, and this was back in 2019. So this was several years ago at this point, and the division has changed a lot, which that's one of the bigger takeaways that I got from this whole experience is the division has in fact changed a lot. These guys are bigger, better, more shredded than any other time since Classic Physique has come out. So this division has continued to evolve and become more and more competitive. And so I'll drop some side-by-side comparisons of how my physique has improved since 2021, which is the last time I stepped up on stage. So over 5 years ago at this point. And you can see the conditioning that I brought, even though my look on stage was a bit spilled, I had overloaded on carbs more than I should have. So my physique on stage was very blurry. So when you stack not being quite conditioned enough for the caliber of athletes that were on stage, plus being washed out because I spent too long carb loading, it led to the placing that I deserved. So one of the big things that differentiated the Pittsburgh Pro from every other show that I've done outside of the caliber of athletes that were there is how the show was run. So I've never done a show on Sunday, and I've never done prejudging that started at 3 in the afternoon. And so those were 2 dynamics that I just didn't expect going into this show. Like as we were getting closer to the show, I looked at the show details and I could tell that we were going to be competing on Sunday, but I didn't know that the amateur division was going to go on before us in the morning. And because of how big the show was, it dragged out. Originally, prejudging was supposed to start around like 1, and it ended up being like 3 that we got up on stage for prejudging. And then we came back for finals like right around 5:30, 6 o'clock. So the way that this show was designed, I just had never experienced that before. I had never had athlete check-ins and weigh-ins on a Friday and then had not just that night, but a full another day plus another half day before actual competition. So there was just a lot of time to fill, too much time. And so in hindsight, what I would have done differently, I would have been much more conservative Friday night after weigh-ins, and I would have been more conservative with how many carbs I was using on Saturday. And then I would have just played it by ear come Sunday, and I would have probably had an additional meal prior to getting on stage for prejudging, because I thought we were going to be going on right in the afternoon, not mid-afternoon. And so I only had 2 meals in me on that Sunday. And then I had basically the carbs that I was going to use to just keep me full and not deflated when I was backstage. And so I ended up being at the venue longer than I should have been. waiting, anticipating, getting on stage for prejudging. Everything seemed really dragged out. I thought the show in general was really well put together and organized. I think they ran it a little bit slow, and how the show was planned to be rolled out, I had not navigated that dynamic before personally. And so with me not having the best conditioning, there's a small window of time where I can hold an ideal look that would be competitive on stage. The leaner you are, I think the easier it is to hold an ideal look without spilling over. That look, that window gets narrower when you're not as conditioned as you probably should be. And so I peaked the day before. On Saturday, it was my best look. I looked really sharp. It was the perfect combination of sharpness and fullness. And what I noticed in my physique is that because I wasn't as conditioned as I probably should have been, if I'm flat, the muscle didn't have that same pop. And so my physique looked kind of muddy or just deflated. It didn't look as sharp. And so I needed a certain amount of fullness to make my physique look sharp. But there is a point where you have too much fullness and now you're spilling over. And so now you're just full and watery, full and blurry looking. So that's what I ran into. I think Thursday and Friday, I was pretty flat. And then Saturday, I started filling up really well. The look was where it needed to be. And then as we started to get into Sunday, I had filled too much. And I attempted to try and hold that full look, which just didn't end up going well. I ended up spilling over, and it showed on stage. And so overall, I learned a lot. I got feedback from Tyler Mannion. So he's one of the head judges for the show. I think he's one of the most objective and critical judges to get feedback from. And so I take what he says very heavily. And his biggest feedback for me was conditioning. But he also said that I could improve in my overall size. Although when you look at the stage pictures, it looked like I belonged up there. It didn't look like I was undersized compared to a lot of the guys. Honestly, my back double bicep was probably one of the strongest in the lineup. It's just I wasn't conditioned enough for it to really make the impression that it could have. So there's definitely a lot of strong points that I have. Tyler emphasized that I have the look, but I got to bring the conditioning. And he did emphasize that if anything needs to come up more than anything else, it's my legs, which I can see that being the case just based on the criteria of Classic and how Classic has evolved. Some of these guys have huge legs. It's a really prominent point of the Classic physique division is having really big legs. Legs have always been a strong point of mine. And so ever since I competed in 2021, the goal has been to bring my upper body up to match my legs. And now I'm getting feedback that is saying that my legs need to come up more, which I think is more of the evolution of the division more than it is my legs lagging per se. And I do think it still comes back to conditioning because my legs, they look bigger the leaner and sharper I am. So I think this all kind of comes back to just bringing a sharper, more conditioned version of myself to the stage and then still working on putting on size. I still have room to fill out this division. If I can nail my conditioning, meaning if I can come in 7 to 10 pounds lighter and then fill that with lean mass, I'll be at the top of my weight class or very close to it. And I will be incredibly competitive, I believe. I think I have the shape. I think I have the presentation. I just need to dial in my conditioning. I need to dial in the muscular development in general, but a little bit more emphasis on the legs potentially. Now, with that being said, there's some context that I wanted to just fill you in on when it comes to this contest prep, just so that you understand like everything that has been going on throughout this prep, because I haven't been able to fill you in very much through the past YouTube videos because, I mean, I've just been incredibly busy. I had mentioned that on one of my earlier episodes where like this prep is just, it's been really action-packed. I haven't had a lot of time to film and create social media content the way that I really wanted to. And part of that is because this is the first contest prep that I've done as a dad and a husband. These are things that I'm just not willing to compromise in. And so being a present dad is really important to me. Being a loving husband that serves his wife, really important to me. The health of my household is is one of my biggest priorities. And I have to juggle that alongside running my own health and fitness coaching business. I have to do that on top of trying to compete with some of the best bodybuilders in the world. I'm working out 5 days per week in the gym. I'm doing cardio 4 to 5 days per week on the stair mill, and I'm getting 15,000 steps in per day, which is about like 90 to 110 minutes of deliberate walking throughout my day. And then we're talking meal preparation and all the other stuff that comes into operating as a normal, regular adult. Not to mention my role in the church over the past year now. I have stepped into hosting and leading our house church. So my wife and I, we've opened up our home for the last year to host house church. If you don't know what house church is, this is what the original church did. After Christ's resurrection, the Holy Spirit descended upon the believers in the church. Christ's church was a group of Christians that met in homes because they couldn't meet in the synagogues due to persecution. They still gathered corporately, but the church expanded through house churches, meetings in their home, and they called it church. So we have a pastor that is the leader of each individual house church. Our church in general is made up of about 50 house churches. So each house church has a house church pastor. And if that house church pastor is married, you have the house church pastor wife that is there to minister, mentor, and disciple the women of that house church. And then you have a host, or you have a husband and a wife that are hosting. And so we initially took on the role of hosting. And over the last 6 months or so now, I have fully stepped into not only hosting with my wife, but leading our house church. And so I've gone through the discipleship process and the prerequisites required to step into pastoral ministry for our house church. And obviously with that comes greater levels of responsibility and oversight. And so I'm juggling my first year of pastoral ministry and serving the church in this type of capacity while taking on all the rest of these obligations that I listed. And so this is not to make excuses. I'm really just trying to fill you in on what my life looks like and why I might be a little bit more absent or inconsistent when it comes to social media content. Because as much as social media is important for my business, my personal brand, these other things are just more important. I'd love to have time to do all of this, but where I'm at right now, I don't have the time and I don't have the resources to buy back some of my time quite yet. And so I'm in a sticky place where I'm trying to do it all. And I'm trying to do it all without making major compromises in all of these different areas that are incredibly important to me. And so it's been a challenge. And this is kind of a side point, but like our church has gone through some difficulties throughout this contest prep where we've had leaders step down and leave the church, which has been really heavy on my soul. It's been hard to watch some people that I think are amazing. I love them. I thought they were instrumental in our church. Really great, God-fearing people that had left the church. And so the church was in a pretty chaotic transition season in the midst of this contest prep. And because of that as well, my existing house church just recently merged with another house church that would have otherwise been disbanded if we hadn't have stepped in and merged the two house churches together. Everything is working itself out, but like all of this is going on in the background while I'm eating my chicken and rice, while I'm doing all this cardio, while I'm cooking and trying to be a present dad and like taking care of my household and running a business. Like it's a lot. It's a lot. And so I'm trying to do all of this while coaching myself through this contest prep, which is a whole nother dynamic I've never done before. Some of this is because of limited resources, where as much as I'd love to just outsource all the decision making to a coach, I know I'm very capable of making a lot of these decisions and navigating a prep on my own. I've only really done it in a limited capacity. And so this time around, I just chose to coach myself through this entire prep. And through that, I've learned so much. I don't regret it. I think having a window of time where you solely are responsible for your results and making decisions for your own health and physique goals, I think it's incredibly important. I think it teaches you way more than just listening to instructions that are given to you by a coach. Of course, there's a lot to learn through being guided by a coach that has a proven process that is a little further along on the journey than you are. But there's something powerful about making your own decisions, not being able to point the blame anywhere else outside of yourself. I can't blame anybody for the result or the placing that I got at this show. I earned this placing, and the feedback that I got is what I need to work on. And so there's something really freeing about that. Yes, I have all these things going on, and I can blame that I'm so busy that I just couldn't focus on this contest prep. But at the end of the day, all of these things are important to me, and I'm unwilling to compromise in these other areas. But I know I'm called to do the best that I can do within the sport of bodybuilding as well. And so the only answer, the way I see it, is to try and do it all, which is what I'm doing. And so with that being said, just to wrap a bow around the Pittsburgh Pro experience, this was one of the best peaks up until the last day that I have ever experienced. In the past, I would deal with involuntary muscle cramps a few days leading up to the show, and then especially the day of the show. I'd be incredibly dehydrated. It would be very difficult to pose or hold my poses. There have been times in the past where, because of electrolyte manipulation, diuretic use, I put myself in a very scary spot as far as my health is concerned. And I'm just happy to say that I did not do that this time. I felt really good the whole time through the peaking process. I almost brought one of the sharpest looks to the stage. I just lacked a little bit of conditioning, and I peaked a little early. And so I'm excited to get another shot at nailing this peak in a couple weeks here. So I'm going to be doing the Optimum Classic in Louisiana. This is a show that's drivable for me. It's only about 4 hours from Houston, Texas here. So my wife's going to be there with me along with my daughter this time. And so I'm excited to get another opportunity to fine tune my conditioning in the limited time that I have, but then also have another chance at nailing this peak. And this time, athlete check-ins are on Friday as usual, and then prejudging starts in the morning Saturday. And that's what I'm used to. And so I'm going to follow a very similar peaking protocol to what I did at the Pittsburgh. And I think I'm going to find that I have a lot more success at this show than at Pittsburgh. I'm going to bring a better, sharper version of myself to the stage. And I'm excited for you guys to see the difference that 2 weeks can make. And then I should say, just backing up for a second, I had so many people praying for me for this contest prep, especially for this peak week. It was one of those things that I could actually feel. I had never been so at ease going into a peak week. Like, even though there was a part of me that knew, like, I'm not as sharp as I probably could be, like, I was really excited to get back up on stage. I didn't have this huge pressure to perform or this fear of judgment or fear of failure. I felt at peace. I felt like, regardless of the placing, I have all these other things going on in my life that I feel completely blessed to be involved with. I have an amazing family. I belong to an amazing church, and I'm covered by the blood of Jesus. I don't have anything to complain about. And so I felt like going into the show, I didn't feel like I needed to prove anything. I had a curious frame about how things were going to go, where I would land in the mix. But then also, I was very open-handed with the outcome. I was just really honored and privileged to be able to compete against some of the best in the world. And so there was just a peace and a humility that came with this contest prep, especially on peak week, that I have never experienced before. And I love it. I thought it was amazing. And so any of you who have been keeping me in your thoughts, prayers, you've reached out to me on social media, wishing me the best, and have just been cheering me on. I want to say I really appreciate it. Like, it's very meaningful to me. This is one of those preps where I didn't really feel the same level of support that I have gotten in the past. And some of it might just be because I haven't competed in a while. And so I'm just less relevant than I used to be. I think another part of that is the fact that I am not working directly with a coach. And so my support is more so coming internally from myself. And then my peers. I have people from my church that are encouraging me, but they don't understand bodybuilding. like that. And so I didn't have a lot of people that really were supporting me from a place of like, they knew what I was going through. And so there was a part of me that felt sort of isolated or not fully understood. And there's a weight that comes with that as you're navigating a process like this. And so there was a part of me that felt like, man, I wish I had more support. But when it came to peak week, I think a lot of people came out of the woodwork to show their support. I had a lot of people praying for me, and it was felt. Like, it was just felt in the best way possible. And so I just want to say thank you if you're one of those people that did that spoke up, or even silently just prayed a prayer for me. I don't know what else to say other than thank you. It means a lot. And this whole experience was a lot of fun. I'm not upset with my placing. I take full responsibility for my placing, and I'm excited for what's to come. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for this next show. I'm excited for my off season. There's so much to look forward to. The future is bright. And so thank you for watching another one of these episodes of the Road to the Olympia 2026. We are not finished yet. And so stay tuned for the next episode. It's going to be coming out within the next couple of weeks here as we get ready for the Optimum Classic in Louisiana. And so I'll see you in the next episode.